Yo, Will Dano here. Today I'm going to briefly introduce you to audio mixing and how I mix my dialogue audio for these tutorials inside of Premiere Pro. Obviously, you should make sure that the microphone is as close to your face as possible and that your voice levels are hovering around -12 decibels on your audio recorder. You could also do this if your mic is attached right to your camera, but I like to keep things separate to get the best audio possible. Also, these audio tools may not work for every single scenario for fixing up audio. They're just the tools that I use specifically for these videos to make my dialogue sound better as efficiently as possible. So let's go in Premiere. Okay, here we are in Premiere Pro. Now, the first little tip that I can give is instead of just starting with adding my effects into one of the layers and then just copying the effects on top of the other layers, instead of just doing all that, I'm gonna go to the audio track mixer. And if you don't have it, you could just go to Window and find audio track mixer. Click that drop down, and now we have access to where we can put effects to the entire track so that we don't have to copy them and paste them into the individual clips. So usually for my master, basically what that is a track that affects all other tracks beneath it. So whatever we add here is going to be added into all other tracks as well. So what I like to add is a hard limiter. That way, if anything's super loud, it gets to -1 or -0.01 or however much you put in, and it just doesn't clip. So I'm just going to keep it at the default, but we should still see how loud everything is and manually adjust it instead of just relying on the hard limiter. So let's get a listen for the raw audio that just came out of the microphone without adding anything to it. Obviously, you should make sure that the microphone is as close to your face as possible and that your voice levels are hovering around -12 decibels. Now, as you can see, I've actually recorded it at around -12 decibels. So first thing I like to add is a compressor. And a compressor is basically something that makes the high ends of my dialogue a little bit quieter and the low ends of my dialogue a little bit louder. So that way it sounds a little bit more constant throughout. So I'm gonna go to track number 1, which is where my dialogue is at. And I'm gonna add a multiband compressor. Now this is an easy way of compressing and it's just kind of more general. I don't want to do too much work. So I'm just going to go ahead and change the default preset to broadcast. And I'm just going to exit out of that and I'm going to see what it sounds like. Obviously, you should make sure that the microphone is as close to your face as possible and that your voice levels are hovering. So it is a little bit more punchy and it's a bit louder for sure, but it's good and we can work with it from here. What I'm going to add next is a parametric equalizer. And what that's going to allow me to do is if I change the preset into loudness maximizer, it's going to allow me to make my voice a little bit deeper, and I can also increase the high end frequencies as well. So we can just hear what it sounds like as we increase those. Obviously, you should make sure that the microphone is as close to your face as possible and that your voice levels are hovering around -12 decibels on your audio recorder. You could also do this if your mic is attached right to your camera, but I like to keep things separate to get the best audio possible and that your voice levels are hovering around -12 decibels on your audio recorder. You could also do this if your mic is attached right to your camera. So basically you can make the voice deeper and make it sound a little bit punchier as well. After doing all that, a lot of the audio is pretty loud and there's a lot of noise in the audio as well. So what I like to do is add a denoiser by going to noise and denoise. And instead of using 40%, I like to just use maybe 6 or 7%. Obviously, you should make sure that the microphone is as close to your face as possible. Now, that right there sounds pretty good right now, but if you want to go one step further, what you can do is put the noise a little bit down here and get another parametric equalizer. And in this parametric equalizer, instead of going to loudness maximizer, we're just going to keep it at the default. In here, we're going to pick out certain frequencies that sound really weird. And once we pick them out, we could just subtract them so that we take them out of the original audio. So I'm going to show you what I mean. Basically, I'm gonna hit play, and while it's playing, I'm gonna test out for certain frequencies at certain times. So I'm gonna raise this 2, for example, and that's gonna raise this particular frequency, and then I'm gonna go through the audio and see where it sounds really strange, and you're gonna see what I mean in just a second. Obviously, you should make sure that the microphone is as close to your face as possible, and that your voice levels are hovering around. You see how right here in the middle, it just sounds really clogged up? Obviously, you should make sure that the microphone is as close to your face as possible and that your voice levels are hovering around -12 decibels. Once you find these clogged up spaces, you could just decrease that. So basically, we manually found a place that sounds really strange frequency-wise, and we brought it down a little bit. And if we bring it down just a touch, and then change the range here, we can effectively cut that part out, and we can keep going with this. We can go back to the beginning, and I'll try with number 4 here. Obviously, you should make sure that the microphone is as close to your face as possible, and that your voice levels are hovering around -12 decibels on your audio recorder. You could also do this if your mic is attached. It just sounds really strange there as well, so I'm just gonna bring that down and broaden it out a bit. And that would be the basic way of doing it. And so now if we listen to everything, obviously you should make sure that the microphone is as close to your face as possible, and that your voice levels are hovering around -12 decibels on your audio recorder. Obviously you should make sure that the microphone is as close to your face as possible, and that your voice levels are hovering around -12 decibels on your audio recorder. And that's it for me today. It's super important to make sure that your audio is just as good as your video, because the experience matters just as much for the audience, regardless of the content. So if you have any questions or suggestions, drop them down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.